everybody. Thanks for joining us for our first podcast. We're really excited about this series. We're going to be talking to a ton of outdoor professionals about different things that they're doing in the industry, whether it's hunting, fishing, ice fishing, living off the grid, snowboarding, all sorts of stuff. So, you know, this podcast might not be for you, but the next one could be. So definitely stay tuned for some of our different guests we're going to be having on. Today, I'm joined by Corey, Joe, and Matt.
Hello.
Hey. Hello.
Thank you guys for coming. I think I'm really excited about today's topics. I know walleye fishing is a big thing over the summer all over the country, as is coming up on the fall, which is big game hunting out in the Western outdoors. So I think we have a really cool guest on today that we're going to be speaking to in regards to kind of the Western side of the United States, but coming through his fishing experiences, what he's been seeing, and some hunting stuff.
Right. I've worked with Nate for a long time, been out hunting and fishing with him several times, and he's a great guy, man. You talk about somebody who knows the Colorado and the wild game like the back of his hand. It's this guy. He lives every day out there. So
what kind of fishing did you do with him when you were in Colorado?
Did some ice fishing out in Chatfield with him.
Oh, at the charity event.
Yeah, his Tightline Outdoors series that we did. Then we went out on an elk hunt the one time together.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, camped out in a sportsmobile and chased some elk around. Ended up getting one. So
did you chase them, really?
Well, he did more chasing than I did. He's in better shape. I'm not running up and down mountains here.
You're not trained for that kind of stuff out here in Ohio.
No, I'm a flatlander. But, I mean, it was fun. It was cool getting out there. And like I said, he knows Colorado like the back of his hand. So if anybody's interested in getting out there and really, really exploring something different, and getting after some elk or some trout, he's the guy to listen to and talk to.
And if you weren't excited about it before you hear him speak, you'll definitely be excited after you hear him speak. He's just one to pump you up and want you to get out there and spend your money on these tags and get those big hunts. So I think let's, without further ado, let's get Nate on the phone.
Yeah, enjoy, everybody. All right, everyone. Today we are speaking with Nate Zelinsky of Tightline Outdoors, which is the premier fishing guide service of Colorado and the authority in the Western outdoors. He has been a guide since 2001 and has group guides for several sport fish and big game hunting. If you want to know more about hunting and fishing in the Western outdoors, go to www.tightlineoutdoors.com. Welcome, Nate.
All right. Hey, Nate.
Welcome. How you guys doing?
Good.
How are you?
Doing good, man.
Excellent.
Was all that information correct and up to date?
That sounded fantastic. That's a great intro. I'm going to hire you.
Very nice. Good. I'm glad it did justice for you here.
Good that you pulled it off your website.
So for everybody listening here, I guess one thing important to kind of know is Nate's on his boat out in Colorado. You want to give us an update of your world right now and what's going on, Nate?
Absolutely. Colorado is, we're having a tremendous year. We had an early spring, so we had warm weather, so all the lakes iced off a little ahead of time, anywhere from about a week early to about 4 weeks early, depending on where you're at in the state. It really made for tremendous fishing. It's also made kind of a really good setup for the big game season approaching this fall. So as a sportsman, with both fishing and hunting, we're having a banner year, to say the least. So we're up on our catch rate 50-60%. So it's phenomenal. My boat alone, I just passed the 10,000 walleye mark. So just one boat, my particular boat, I've landed just a little over 10,000 walleyes this year. So it's been an incredible season.
10,000 walleye in just 1 year.
In 1 year.
So you're guiding pretty much every day.
Guiding every day, and we're having a lot of 200 fish days.
Wow.
200 fish days.
Yeah, but what time are you getting up in the morning for those days?
Yeah, the alarm clock rings at 2:45 every day. Every day.
Sarah's does too.
So.
Yeah, right. That's when people go to bed, not wake up.
Wow, it's a busy day.
So hey, Nate, for a lot of
busy days, but yeah, it's fun.
For a lot of people who might be listening, they might not know. Can you talk a little bit about in Colorado? You mentioned you're fishing for walleye, but what other fish are you kind of targeting out there on the lakes that you're hitting?
Yeah, we're super lucky. In Colorado, we have different elevations, so that's the nice thing. I guided in Minnesota for a couple of years, and I fished all around the country as a tournament walleye angler. But in Colorado, we have lakes as low as, say, 4,000 feet in elevation, like 4,800 on their super low point in the eastern plains. And then we have fisheries that we're fishing at 10,600 feet in elevation. So we get the best of all worlds. So in a lot of portions of the country are having those kind of summer doldrums and, the heat getting everything. We can go up in elevation. It doesn't affect anything. So we can have a wide variety of species due to water temperature. We also have different bites going at all points in time during the year because we can chase that climate. So it really helps us out. So as far as myself and Tightline Outdoors, we do a lot of walleye fishing. We have both numbers and big fish. So like I said, we have days where we're catching 200 fish a day, and they're usually going to be smaller fish. And then like to date, our personal record here in Colorado is a 17-pound walleye. So we get big fish on that scale. We also get tremendously large big lake trout. So we get lake trout in, the mid 40-pound range. Our state record's over 50 pounds. We get a lot of big northern pike. So Will Dykstra, one of our senior pike guides who does a lot of stuff with you guys, he had a pike going 36 pounds this spring here in Colorado. So we can compete on a national, almost global, world as far as quality of fish. So we're just really fortunate that. We also do a lot of bass fishing, a lot of rainbow trout fishing, which is kind of the standard here in Colorado. Big catfish. We have kokanee salmon, which is inland landlocked salmon. So there's a lot of opportunity out here.
Wow.
So you're in Colorado. What are just a handful of the lakes that you typically are guiding on? Do you have one specific lake, or is there a
walleye fishery is going to be right around Denver. Like today, I'm on Chatfield Reservoir doing a lot of walleye fishing. So we do Chatfield, Cherry Creek, right in the Denver metro. I mean, we're 15 minutes from downtown Denver, and the fishing's awesome. We also spend a lot of time in the South Park area, which is going to be like above Colorado Springs. That's where we're going to do a lot of our pike fishing and a lot of our trout fishing in that situation. We guide on 16 bodies of water, so we have the most permits of anybody in the state.
Wow. Very cool.
It covers a wide area for sure.
Yeah,
so you're talking about having a 200 fish day. So kind of one of the things we wanted to talk about was catch and release fishing. So if you're having a 200 fish day, how much of that are you keeping? Are you keeping and eating? Are you keeping and saving any of that fish, or is it all catch and release?
It really depends on our customers. We bring it down to our customer base. So like on the body of water that Chatfield, we're doing our most numbers of fish. That situation, they actually use the fish here for a breeding situation. So in the spring when our fish are spawning, they actually set nets out at night and they collect the males and females and they actually spawn them out. And we use that to, number one, restock all the fisheries in Colorado. We also use that as a barter system. So we trade with, say, Kansas for pheasants. We trade with, Wyoming and a couple other places for some quail. We trade for wildlife all across the country. So they consider this kind of a breeding fishery. With that said, the average angler, as long as you have a fishing license, you're allowed to keep 3 walleyes per person per day. They have to be a minimum size of 18 inches and only one fish greater than 21. So that's like state law.
So very tightly regulated.
Our parks are very tightly regulated, absolutely. And then our Parks and Wildlife does a pretty good job of keeping on top of that. So in regards to catch and release, I think that the states tend to put into place what is a healthy fishery. So they assume, hey, that the average angler, maybe half of them are capable of catching their limit, maybe the other half are not. And they build in those regulations what would sustain a healthy fishery. So that's kind of how we partake in it. So if our customers wish to take, say, a limit of fish, generally we let them do that. Now, the only thing that we do as a service, and as a guide service, it's kind of an inland law that we put in place, is we don't keep fish over 22 inches as far as a walleye goes. So technically, if one of our guests on our boat caught a 30-inch female, big 10-year-old female walleye, legally they could keep and harvest that fish. We personally don't allow that. So we put in our own stipulation of that 22-inch mark. So if you want to keep 3 18-inch fish, it's going to be a young male. It doesn't really have an impact on the fishery. We have enough fish and it's kind of built in to allow that fish to come out.
So that
the only thing we do is we personally try to protect those bigger fish.
So that 22-inch limit is really just in the interest of keeping the DNA of those bigger, older fish in the lake as long as possible.
Once they hit that, they're about, roughly speaking, they're a 5.5-year-old female. And once they get to that point, they've made it past that we'll say that dumb stage, that stage where they're making
the young buck.
Once they hit that 22, they have a good shot at becoming a trophy fish. And we do a lot of trophy fishing out here in the spring where we're targeting nothing but big fish. So we just want to make sure we kind of protect that resource while we have it.
I want to circle back around to your barter system that you guys do. That's really interesting. I've never heard of anything like that. Is that something that has been around for a long time? Is this a new program?
It has been.
What's
we
the
have one of the
that?
most successful spawns in the country. There's other states definitely starting to do it. Most states, however, though, are just using it for their own stocking of their own personal state. Colorado is unique in the fact that we have really cold water and we have extremely oxygenated water because we have so much current flow coming from spring runoff of the Rocky Mountains. So we have a tremendously healthy fishery because we have such clean quality water. And our fish are spawning in different situations where they're easy to gather. So we started this program in the 80s and it's really held true. It's been so successful that we get far more eggs than say we need, which allows us to have that trade system. So generally speaking, the average spring, they do their netting program on 3 bodies of water. So they do Chatfield Reservoir, Cherry Creek Reservoir, which are right in the Denver metro, again, 15 minutes from downtown. And then Pueblo Reservoir is going to be a southern fishery about 2 hours or an hour and a half from downtown Denver. And between those 3 fisheries, and roughly speaking about 3 weeks, maybe a month, they collect right around 120 million fertilized eggs. So, once it's complete, once the egg's fertilized, they consider that a complete unit, and they get about 120 million of those. And that's what they're using as their trade systems and restocking all the lakes within Colorado and things of that nature.
So who gets to decide what you get in like the whole barter system though? Like what states sign up for it? How do you get so you have a bunch of extra walleye. Who decides that you're going to trade for pheasant?
That's going to be the higher end of the DNR programs. I'm sure that there's, right now I know that we're trading mainly just with Western states. So I know we trade for tiger muskie to New Mexico. Again, we do quail, pheasants, turkeys, things like that. So it seems to be a Western fishery type situation. But as far I really don't know what's going on. I can't imagine the trading amongst governments. I'm sure that's a unique situation that nobody's really going to figure out if I had to guess right.
No, it sounds like a really cool system. It sounds like something that you think they'd be able to expand out. I mean, here on Lake Erie, we've got an amazing perch fishery. I don't know if there's something that our state should or could be thinking about to take advantage of that in a way that we're not. We have a decimated pheasant population.
It works
here.
well. Money's always tight in these organizations and conservation, but when you have an ample supply of natural resource, trading that can definitely be helpful. We
Absolutely.
definitely take advantage of that.
So, back to the question on your 200 fish day, everyone kind of has a different opinion of catch and release and its effectiveness or ineffectiveness. On a 200 fish day, there's numbers that come out and say that the mortality rate's 35%. And then there's some people that are saying you're between 1 and 5. I read for largemouth bass today that it's a 5% mortality rate. What are your thoughts there? What things do you personally do to make sure the mortality is low, and what do you think about those rates?
Absolutely. I think that as far as the true percentage goes, I hate to say it, but it's really angler to angler. So, and we see both hands on a daily basis out here, and we see those high number days. You really have to put it on to the angler catching those fish and how they handle those fish. So, simple things that we do say to really help conservation. So we net all our fish, so big or small. So if it's a 13-inch walleye or it's a 20-inch walleye, we're netting these fish with a rubber net. So instead of using a nylon net or any other materials out there, we're using a full rubber, not a rubber coated, but a full rubber net to make sure we're not taking slime coat off, make sure we're not damaging gill plates, just make sure that we're doing everything we can to cradle that fish in a soft cushion net to get that fish in the boat. So we're never swinging that fish, by the jaw or, wherever that fish happens to be hooked. So everything's netted to help out with that situation. We always start off with wet hands when we're grabbing the fish so we don't take away a slime coat that could be harmful. And then the biggest thing that we do is we use, it's a live bait technique, where a lot of guys might be using large hooks and might be feeding the fish to where the fish is ending up gut hooked. We run a super tight snell. So I'm running, like in a situation of walleye, I'm running 2 number 8 hooks snelled about a ½ inch apart. So I have literally 2 hooks stacked on top of each other. And when these fish touch the bait, most walleye anglers, or a lot of walleye anglers, are going to feed the fish. They drop their rod tip back, or they give the fish line, allowing the fish to rotate the bait to swallow it smooth side down. It's a common process. But in that process, a lot of fish ended up getting gut hooked, which can be, very, very, hard on that fish, depending if you cut your line or remove the hook very cautiously. But we use a 2-hook harness, so all the hooks are going to be on the outside jaw, top or lower jaw. But it really allows us to make sure that we have a very quick hook removal and very harmless hook removal. Then we return the fish to the water as quick as possible. So as long as we have, that concept enrolling on every one of our fish, or a good portion of those fish, I would say that we are less than 1% mortality in the average situation. But you see a lot of other anglers that are swinging fish in. That's, super harmful on the fish. When they swing it in, very rarely do they catch it. They swing it in, it hits the carpet of their boat, it's bouncing around, so it's getting knocked around, it's losing slime coat. Then you see everybody that's scared to touch walleye, so they throw a towel on it. They wear gloves because they don't want to get fit.
Nothing makes me
sadder. So they're holding it with a towel, and got these big pliers. Instead of having forceps, they're using the pliers that you buy at like an Ace Hardware. They're ripping the hook out, and so that type of situation comes into play. So, more so than I'd say regulated from a government standard. I think the biggest thing to help conservation, really help the mortality rate, is education. Education is absolutely huge out there, and the more you can do to educate anglers on the correct process, the correct systems, that's really going to be firsthand. I think more so than fish limits, I think the education on handling fish is probably more important, because again, I think that most of your DNRs are going to put in place a limit on a fish of what the fisheries can handle. As much as I hate to say that, because everybody gets mad at that. It's a hot topic. Everybody gets upset, and hey, you got to be catch and release. But as a guide and as somebody heavily involved with the DNR and watching these, most times they do put into place laws that they can handle it. They understand it's their lifestyle. It's it's in best interest of the fishery. So usually they imply those laws that's gonna at least somewhat manage the fishery to the best of their ability. Now, as angling success gets better, so as anglers start to get more successful, as they get more educated, that's the only thing that can really spin it if DNRs cannot change their laws quickly. In Colorado, it takes about 2 years to pass something. So it's possible that you could have a low bait fish year and have the fishing just be tremendous, and the person who usually isn't successful becomes successful. And that's when your numbers can get kind of skewed and kind of get out of whack. But generally speaking, they kind of speak for themselves. And then the other thing that I preach on a personal level is I never freeze fish. That's my rule to myself and rule to everything that I try to educate with people, is you never freeze fish. That should be your kind of morals of when you're out there fishing. So take what you're going to eat that day, or take what you're going to eat for your family. And if you need more fish, go back out the next time you go. It gives you another excuse to get on the water and keep fish that way. But my personal rule is I never freeze fish. And that's how I kind of keep my personal system in check. As long as you're not freezing it, you're not taking out too much. It's healthy for everybody. Your quality of fish is better, and it's really just going to help the entire system.
Yeah.
So I know you were talking about your bait and the different types of hooks you use for catch and release. And now me, an avid social media user who maybe pays a lot of attention to the Tightline Outdoors page and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know you were down in ICAST back in July, and I know there was a lot of new product release and stuff like that you were speaking to on your live videos. What are some of the cool things that you saw down at ICAST coming in the next year or so that are going to be on the market for people to utilize?
Absolutely. Technology is just hitting the industry more than anything. So I think the biggest trends that we saw every year after the last, I think it's been ICAST maybe 13 years now. About 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of new concepts, new paints hitting the market. There was a lot of actually new products. In the last 2 to 3 years, I would say there's not anything revolutionary as far as brand new, but everything has gotten better. So the latest trends in the entire industry, I would say, is just enhancing what we have. Reels are getting far faster. The gears are getting stronger, getting more powerful. So you can now do techniques that used to wear you out or you couldn't do efficiently. You can now do with ease, therefore making you more successful. Same type thing in the hook market. I work with the Eagle Claw right here, and their hooks are getting far sharper than they've ever been. They're getting stronger with a thinner wire, and we'd love to see that. So if you can have a sharper hook with a thinner wire and still hold your strength, that's always going to help with ease with catch and release. So again, a real heavy wired hook is going to do more damage to a jawbone. So a real thin wired hook, same as giving yourself a shot. I mean, think of it as a syringe. Big needle hurts, small needle not as much. So it's the same concept in the hook industry, which is helping out quite a bit. And you're getting better holds on fish. You get a little flex, and just not doing overall damage that you once had in that situation. So more than anything, the current trends are getting better of everything that we currently have right now.
Right. We've actually noticed a pretty similar trend in just the outdoor industry in general. I just got back from Outdoor Retailer out west, And it seems like it's the same thing kind of going on, right? Where it's no completely new innovations in the marketplace, a bunch of, additional features and benefits and kind of, trending towards a better product, but nothing brand new and innovative that you could speak about. I think that holds true of all of them, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I know Joe, who's an avid bass fisherman here, just got a cool new toy on his boat. It's a how would you even describe?
I'm sure Nate knows what it is. An Altera. It's a Minn Kota Altera with a spot lock.
It's the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, follow the contours and all that.
Same
it's great.
technology is hitting it all. So now
he's got an autopilot on his boat now.
More capability. You're getting better anchoring modes, things like that. So it's the same type thing. And the Altera is actually, it's a neat unit because it's self-deploying. I'm sure everybody's seen the commercial where the guy launches his boat, it self-deploys, things like that. So,
which I would not recommend trying the first time you put it in the water. Which I did, and I almost lost my boat. I put the boat in the water, trying to deploy the boat, and the motor wouldn't deploy. My boat's floating away. Yep. Finally got it back, but bad decision.
I'm paddling around like a schmuck, and I see Joe going past me with his boat on autopilot.
Yeah, I just set a couple of waypoints and let it move along while I'm tying on lures.
That's because Corey has a kayak. There's a difference. Yeah. He made a life choice to be in a kayak.
If you're talking about trends and ICAST kayaks, from what I understand, kayaks and ICAST is 30% of the show now.
Right. Well, I'm not getting any less fat sitting on that boat. So.
In the last couple of years, that's definitely been a trend. I would say that you can walk down every single aisle of the 40 aisles at ICAST, and if not every aisle, every other aisle, you could find one kayak feature, whether it was a kayak itself or accessories, or whatever you have. There's definitely a trend moving that direction.
Yeah, kayaks, the Barbie doll for fishermen. Accessories are coming out the nose.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm standing on a 22-foot Nitro right now with a 350 supercharged motor, and I would say that's my comfort level. I can get to an 18-footer, and I start to get very uneasy.
Well, that's also a brand new boat for you, though, too.
That kayak. It is a brand new boat. Very excited to be in a Nitro here. Made a switch after a 12-year relationship, and could not be happier. I could tell you that my performance and level of catch rate as an angler has increased by switching to this boat that I'm currently in right now.
It's a good-looking boat, I gotta say.
You were pretty excited when you got that one.
It's a great boat. It's a Nitro ZV21. Its fishability is incredible. It sticks to the water. It tracks better. It holds truer. So many people fight boat control. And when you're fishing, if you can put more emphasis on your actual fishing and less time with boat control, you're going to catch more fish. It's the honest truth about it. So the more that you can do to have further and gain that boat control, you're immediately rewarded with a catch rate. And that's where this boat here has really helped me out and made the boat pretty much run itself. You're talking about features, I run a motor guide that speaks to my Lowrance, so I can literally pull out on a guide trip, type into my touchscreen what I want it to do, hit go, and for the next 6 to 8, 10 hours, my boat can literally do 100% everything by itself, to where all I do is assist guests or even fish myself in a tournament situation. So it's just really awesome. That's the new trends, like we talked about, technology.
Right.
Absolutely. So hey, switching up a little bit here. So we're heading into fall. We're starting to get a little bit colder here. I know on your social media you've been talking a lot about Bowtech and getting ready for the hunting season. Tell me a little bit about what's going on out there with the elk season coming up and how you're getting ready and what you're doing for Bowtech right now.
Absolutely. It's like I said, it's early spring. So early spring brings on everything. So number one, it brings relief to the animal. So sometimes you get these big, massive spring storms in, March, April, even May. And a lot of times that's when these animals, again, they've been living on their resource fat. They've been, eating the last bit of their grass. Everything gets kind of a little bit rough in that spring. So if you get bombarded with those big, heavy spring storms, it just kind of slows the whole system down. That's where this year we iced off early, had a really nice, calm, consistent spring. So it really was easy on those animals, helped the mortality rate of any, old or injured animals. So that's really good. We're also coming off of a fairly rough fall. So last year, so talking 2016, we had extremely warm temperatures. So way out of the norm for us here in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah. So all these western states, archery season had temperatures in the high 90s. So in general, as a state, say, of Colorado, our harvest rate was significantly down from what it could be, which really, for somebody like myself, I'd love to see, even though the state needs to harvest more animals, I love it as a hunter because now there's just so many more animals this year. So we're combining a higher population because of less harvest of last year. We're combining a nice, easy spring and then basically a really good summer of, fairly stable weather. We got dry there for a little bit, but now we're having a lot of rain. So just seeing more and more animals and better antler growth than we have in years. So watching a lot of animals. So we're full-blown scouting right now. I'm actually going to be assisting on a sheep hunt. So I got a couple of buddies with some sheep tags coming up here starting this weekend. So I'll be in the woods helping them with those sheep tags. I have a pronghorn antelope tag coming up August 15th, and then we roll right into the bow season for the mainstay of big game here in Colorado, the mule deer and the elk. So it's looking good. I'm watching a couple bulls right now that are actually in that magic 400 number.
Nice.
So they got 400 inches of antler, and usually speaking, when you talk those type of numbers, you're thinking, Arizona, maybe some high-end tags in New Mexico, but very rarely is it a public land, fair chase, easy to draw type unit. So very excited to have the opportunity, even if we don't harvest them, just to watch them and to be, in the vicinity to have a chance at a creature like that.
So on that note too, a lot of us people out here on the East Coast, we're not really that familiar with the system out west. How you guys do the tags and the draws and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Maybe speak a little bit about that, because for me, kind of getting out there with you the first time, that was really interesting to me. I mean, because you can get you get a tag. First of all, you're not guaranteed a tag, right? Second of all, you got to get a tag and you got to pick the right location. If you don't get both of those together, your odds of having a successful hunt are, severely decreased, right? So as a person who's getting ready to go hunt, or, somebody who's considering their first time hunt in Colorado, what is kind of like the timeline? Like, when do you start looking into getting your tag? How do you pick out like which area you're going, and what are your odds of actually being a non-resident and getting a good hunt out of it?
Definitely. So the whole state is broken into what we call units, GMUs, game management units. Like, think of it as a county. It's going to be smaller, but think of it as a county. How your state's broken down into counties. It's going to be the same thing. So the whole state's broken into these units. And depending on your weapon choice, archery, muzzleloader, or rifle. So we have basically, in an elk situation, we have a month of archery. So it's going to start the last weekend of August, roll basically to the last weekend of September. So that's going to be our main archery hunt here in Colorado for the mountain areas. Our muzzleloader is basically going to be the middle of September. So basically your second weekend running to your third weekend. It's a 9-day hunt for muzzleloader. Then your rifle seasons break down into 4 different rifle seasons. They're going to start the second weekend of August and roll to basically the third weekend of November. Those are going to be anywhere between 5 and 9-day hunts on your rifle hunt. So each unit might be a specific for that. So if you're hunting a migration zone per se, so northwest corner of the state, your archery tag you can just buy over the counter, which we'll talk about here in a second. But your rifle tag might take you 3-4 years to draw, because that's going to be the high-end hunt for that area, because that's when the most animals are going to be available. So it really depends on your weapon choice and how you want to hunt, of how easy it could be to draw these tags. So as far as that goes, the half of the state for archery, so half of the units of the state are over the counter. When we say over the counter, you could right now, Corey, you could say, hey, I want to come to Colorado. I want to hunt. The season's going to start, coming up here in the late August. You could come down here a weekend before you hunt, buy your tag at a local Walmart or Bass Pro, wherever you want, and go hunt in these over-the-counter style units. So there's definitely opportunity there, and there's some really good opportunity. Now, education helps. So if you can scout, find the animals, you can make an unbelievable hunt out of one of these over-the-counter style areas. Now you start talking about draw units, though, and if you get into a draw unit, you can have increased opportunity, because you're going to have more animals. It's slightly more managed, usually a little bit better quality animals. And those are the ones that it could take a year to draw that tag. And then in Colorado right now, our highest elk tag is taking about 24 points to get.
Wow. So as a person,
it could be
as a non-resident, and I want to do this, how do I make sure, like, I show up with my equipment and I scout it out a little bit. How do I make sure I don't cross over from one area to the other?
It's going to be, it's really well written out in basically a booklet telling you the borders. It's going to be a river, a road, a major frequency of a line. So it's pretty easy to determine that. If not, you can buy some of the software. There's some unbelievable software out there. Colorado Parks and Wildlife puts out a map series that you can basically load an SD card into any sort of GPS. You can download it on your phone and have that map with you to where you can see your particular zone, make sure you don't cross out of that. Now, tags as far as a draw unit, so if you're going to put in for a draw tag, one of those special units, those are going to be due the first week of April. So generally speaking, in March is when everybody's starting to kind of prep, start to look at what's going on out there, have that good idea built up to where August 1st you can put in for that tag and have that done. What I personally suggest everybody do is, I'm a big fan of saying, hey, scout, let's say you are listening to this right now and you're intrigued and you want to come hunting. Make a family vacation. Come to Denver. Fly to Denver. However you got to do it. Come to Denver. Drive around. Scout around. See the areas that you like. Whether if you're, hey, I got to stay in a hotel or I'm going to camp or whatever your situation is, come out and check that out. Come try to figure it out. See a good area, a good idea of what you're doing. So that way next spring when it's actually time to put in for these tags, you have a rough idea of, hey, that was a nice area. Let's put in for this particular unit. Instead of shooting from the hip and being totally blind. So make a quick trip. Doesn't have to be a full-blown scouting trip, but get a rough idea of what you're looking at. Make sure it's terrain that you're physically able to hunt. Make sure it's not too extreme for you. And that type of thing can go a long ways when planning a Western hunt for sure.
Or I'm going to call Nate and he can just tell me where to go.
That's a great plan. We're always about helping.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Nate. We're going to take a quick pause here to hear from our sponsor, and then we will revisit with Nate.
This podcast is presented by Mr. Heater, North America's most popular brand of portable heaters and accessories. Use coupon code PODCAST20 to receive 20% off and free shipping at www.mrheater.com.
Okay, thanks everybody, and we're again here with Nate Zelinsky, and we're going to talk about a couple extra topics here. Corey, what else do we have to talk about?
So Nate, before we left off, we were talking about the draw system in Colorado. Somebody who wants to come out, how they can make a time of it and a good experience. You suggested that they come out, visit Colorado, visit Denver, make a vacation of it with the family there, which I think is a great idea. Right? It's a way to get acquainted. It's a way to pick what kind of spot you want to hunt in. I know Colorado, in my experience, it's a hugely varied terrain. Right? So up north, you get the big green mountains. Down south and out west, it's a little rockier and a little more red. And I think just that part of it. For me, if you're going to spend, I don't know what a tag costs out there, $600 as a non-resident, something like that. You're going to spend $600.
Exactly.
You want to get out there and at least enjoy the time too, right? So if you don't come home with an animal, you want to at least be out and enjoy the scenery. So I think part of it is picking the area that you don't mind spending a weekend and not coming home with an animal.
No, I mean, that's huge. I mean, yeah, whether you're doing the scenic thing. I mean, we talk to a lot of archery hunters that, they hunt in the morning and they fish in the afternoons. They want to make sure they have something near water where they can enjoy that. I mean, let's just say the physical ability is huge out here. There's a unit that I'm hunting this year for elk to where I'm probably going to be looking at, anywhere between an 8 and a 12-mile hike one way to get into where I'm hunting, which is fine. I love it. There's a lot of animals there. It's exciting for me. It's about that experience. I'm having to earn it. I'm having to work hard for it. But there's a lot of people, you talk to, your dad, your uncle, and they're like, man, if I'm not 300 yards from a truck, it's not happening. Right. And that's the type of thing to where when you're applying for a tag, you look at the stats, you look at the map, you have no idea what's out there. You have to really build it on your style. So if you want to ride an ATV, pick an area where you have, trails open to ATVs, or hey, I got to drive around in a truck, I'm not judging anybody. I mean, whatever your style is, we have it to fit in Colorado. I mean, you can hike up a 13,000-foot mountain and shoot an elk at tree line, and we have that option if you're physical enough to do it. If you're needing that ATV, needing that truck, you have that. But you're never going to know that from a phone call, never going to know that from a computer. So it's one of those things that coming out to visit to make sure that you're not overwhelmed. And we see that. We have guys, all the time that I'll run into, and they'll be sitting there at a restaurant. I'm like, man, where are you hunting? They're like, man, I put in for my tag, and I had no idea I had to hike here or climb here. I thought it was going to be a slam dunk, and that stuff changes. So knowing the terrain is huge.
Now you're a hiker, though. You're all about hiking into the deep woods, the deep country, and just getting down in there and waiting.
I wouldn't classify me as a hiker. If there's no end result, I would definitely not do it. just to throw that out there.
But you also have to train for this, though, right?
Elk and a giant deer, I'm all about. Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So we're doing a lot of hiking right now with 100 pounds on our back and a short hike, and then we're doing the 12, 13 miles. We're just carrying about a 40-pound pack. But no, you definitely have to make sure your body can handle it and don't put it into shock those first couple hunts. But yeah, I mean, that again, it's that style hunt that you're looking for. I like it to where I don't ever see a person. I like it to where I see elk that I don't think I've ever seen a person. You know, I love it when I look at these animals and they look back at me and they're like, "Whoa, I've never seen that. Is that a human?" There's something about that type of experience that's exciting.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of the story here is if you want to hunt in Colorado, you're going to be able to get out there. You're going to be able to, if you want to go archery, you're going to be able to get out and get it. Now, if you want to do a rifle hunt, like I know people who want to shoot an elk in Kentucky, and good luck. I mean, you physically could win the lottery in your state before you win the elk lottery in Kentucky.
Before you get that, yep.
Yeah, so in Colorado, you can get out there and you actually have a pretty high shot of being able to go on a hunt. So that's really cool.
What's your favorite type of
as far
animal
as that goes,
to hunt?
Because my mainstay, I am definitely an elk freak. You know, I do a lot of mountain lion hunting. I do a lot of bear hunting, a lot of mule deer, a lot of pronghorn. I mean, everything that I can get a tag for and chase. Absolutely love it and live for it. But elk is my mainstay. Elk are the ones that keep me up at night. They're the ones that ruin my life. Like right now, I'm a nervous wreck knowing where these handful of these giant bulls are. You know, my wife just gets mad at me. She's like, "You got to take it easy. You're just, you're grumpy. You're turned into a different person because you're so worried that, somebody else is going to find them or they're going to move on you. They're going to get hit by a car or a lion's going to get whatever." So there's a million things that could happen. Usually they never do. But regardless, it's one of those things that gets in your head. And the fact that that animal can do that to me, that's the part I love. I love that excitement. I love that thought that can happen. So elk is definitely my mainstay. And then people coming from out of state, I mean, there's talk about chancing. We talk about the draw, and I think people can get scared. But there's a huge amount of tags available for archery hunting, and there's a lot of tags in the second and third rifle season that are over the counter. So regardless of the area, as long as you're willing just to give it a try, and hunt pretty hard, every year we have unlimited amount of tags for over the counter that are going to be good options as long as you can put that hard work in, stay dedicated. You have a really good shot at an animal here.
Right. So, hey, you had mentioned the lions out there. I know some friends who live out in Colorado, and they're definitely seeing a lot more mountain lion. What are some of the pressures that you're seeing on the population out there? I know out west there's a big reintroduction of wolves in a lot of states. I know the mountain lion population is exploding in a lot of states. What's happening in Colorado right now?
We're definitely very high on the predator list. I mean, there's no doubt between our bears and our lions, and bears are our worst predator out there. We just have so many bears. That population is just skyrocketing, and the harvest rate is just down. Anytime that you have a large population of people that do not hunt, the Denver area, the Boulder area, we have large populations of people that are against hunting. So they really they're a very gathered group of people. So, these people that are not into the conservation and the wildlife hunting, they're gathered as a group, and they have a fairly large footprint when it comes to these regulations. So in Colorado, our only way to hunt bears per se is in the fall. It's going to be spot and stock. So there's no spring season. There's no running with dogs. There's no bait. So anytime you take that out, bears are somewhat hard to harvest. We definitely have a lot of opportunity on if you know what you're doing. But the general hunter, the average hunter, your success on harvesting bears is probably less than 5%. I don't know the true state number, but it's rough. And the main reason for it is our seasons are tending to get warmer. So we're having warmer temperatures than normal. And these bears are just nocturnal. They're like a giant raccoon. I mean, that's really what these bears are. So they're out in the daylight for a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening. And if you're not in the right spot, it's tough. And a lot of times in the fall, they're feeding on acorns. So they're in these massive green hillsides, and all they do is literally stick their arm up, pull a branch down, eat an acorn, and move on. So, they could be in front of you for an hour.
These are all black bears, right?
All black bears.
Yeah.
Yep. We get color phases of them, but they're all black bears. And,
gotcha.
You just never have that chance at them. So the hunting is not doing a big enough effect in harvesting enough of those animals. Same thing with the lions. We can run dogs in Colorado for lions, which helps.
So you can run dogs on a lion, but you can't on a bear out there?
That's correct. So we can run lions with run hounds on lions, but that's about the only thing. And that success rate is great. But the problem is who has dogs? I have,
right,
but one in every 1,000 hunters, I don't even know what the number is, that has that opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
In a general kind of situation. So again, there's just not enough people pursuing those animals where the harvest rate's not good enough, so the population is exploding. As far as wolves, we have some wolves in Colorado. They have not said they are officially a pack. They're not, basically claiming them as they're here. It's whatever. You don't want to get in that conversation. I hate the conversation because everybody has their own take on it. Yeah, they're bad news. It's one of those things that they are just extremely they'll eat everything. I mean, they're a rough predator. They're very successful at what they do as far as wolves are concerned.
Right.
Now, I agree that they were once here, so the reintroduction is a part of that. But the one problem that we have with wolves is once we as humans started to get involved in population control, that's when we took over. It's hard to reverse that play. And that's the one big thing that I can say. If you would have never taken a hand in conservation and everything was natural, there wouldn't be an issue with wolves and everything would be fairly, going well as far as population is concerned. But once we step in one time as a person and start to control that, it's hard to reverse that. So now that our numbers are so skewed, the wolves really come into play and kind of mess things up just because we've already taken control of that.
Well, it's always interesting, I think, when you start talking about predators and predator hunting, you start to get into that really sensitive word of trophy hunting, right? And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about. I know me personally, I struggle with it a lot because, my thinking is you're going to reintroduce elk in Kentucky. They're reintroducing them in Pennsylvania. You're putting all these species and trying to bring them back across the U.S. It only makes sense to bring the predators back with them. But the difference is everybody wants to hunt an elk, right? Everyone's comfortable with that. But nobody's comfortable getting out there and really controlling the population of these predators that they also want to reintroduce. And I think it really creates kind of a tough moral issue for people. Like me personally, I grew up, I won't hunt anything that I'm not going to eat. And so I personally I know people who eat bear. Some people tell me it's phenomenal. You got to try it. I just personally have no desire to do it. Now, if I were there and somebody offered it for me and they cooked it well, I would probably give it a shot. But it's not something I want to go out and do. And I don't know of anybody who actually eats the wolf or a coyote when they get it done. So I don't know. I think people just have a tough time kind of coming to grips with that and how to deal with that. And I have no answers here. I'm just.
Yep. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think that your hardcore hunters would hunt, say a wolf per se, just to help with the population because the elk numbers would get so skewed. But I agree. People, if you're looking at wolf hunting, even in Alaska, places where you can legally do it, it's mainly for the option of a mount or a hide. So it definitely comes into play of that trophy hunting or that legal sale of animals. It becomes a business, which is, again, one of those subjects that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. And a bear, it's going to really be what they eat. If these bears are eating grass, it's a phenomenal animal. If they're eating a rougher food source, obviously the meat. It's the same exact thing as cattle. Anytime you're dealing with any wild animals, what their intake is what their outtake is going to be. So, if you have an elk or a deer feeding on, nice green grass, it's going to be the same as a grass-fed cattle. You have animals in the eastern plains feeding on corn. It's a grain-fed animal, and the meat gets marbling, and it's fantastic. So it's really going to be that type of situation. So the bears can really skew depending on the food source in which they're eating, which can help them out. The bear is going to be a little bit more greasy of a texture, but it makes great meat for that reason. So, of all the bears I harvest, we do a lot of sausage. We do a lot of teriyaki sticks, a lot of snack sticks. And it's great because it's really good for that style of cut. So, of all the jerky that I want to make that year, I just make it out of my bear. And then my premium cuts, my elk steaks or my steaks roast burger, I make out of my elk, which is going to be a more premium meat. Now, the one predator that I will say is 100% shocking is mountain lion. Mountain lion, as far as a butchering standpoint, is going to be identical to pig. So if you have a pork chop, you'll have a lion chop. It's going to be the same texture. It's a white meat. So it's a very, very light pink, if not white meat. So we do like pulled lion sandwiches, same as you do pork. So any cut that you would do on a pig, other than bacon, you can do on a lion.
No.
So the cut.
Don't sign me up for that dinner.
You know what? I'm in on that.
I'm not coming to that
It'll blow
potluck.
your mind.
I'm with you. I think I'd try that in a heartbeat.
Absolutely fantastic.
I wouldn't want to
Really,
butcher
really
it,
good.
but I'd love to try it.
I tried his elk jerky last year, and I never thought in my wildest dreams I would try elk because I've never even tried deer.
Elk is good.
But it was good. But I don't
It's
need
good.
a whole pack of it. A taste was enough.
We'll make sure we bring some lion jerky to the next show.
No. That's okay. You can keep that yourself. Thanks for the offer.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Nate. We really appreciate it. Take a few minutes to
Absolutely.
list off some of your sponsors, some of the partners, and then also give us your
Social
media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah,
Where can people find
do a
you?
lot of that
Yep.
type stuff. For sure. The website, tightlineoutdoors.com, is a main host for most everything that we do, our fishing, everything like that, as well as Tightline Outdoors on Facebook. And then as far as Facebook goes, Nate Zelinsky is my fan page. So you just go to Nate Zelinsky. And then as well, we're Tightline Outdoors on Instagram. We're Nate Z Hunt on Instagram. So but go to the website. You can contact us there. Without a doubt, we'll get back to you. It's a great way there. And we different partners. We got a million of them for every different situation. We have ice tournaments, walleye tournaments, bass fishing tournaments, carp tournaments. We have the world's largest series of ice fishing tournaments, the Ice Addiction Tournament Series. We guide, we hunt. So anything that is outdoor wildlife related here in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, we have our hand in it. We appreciate doing it.
Well, and Nate is also a Bowtech athlete and does currently live feeds every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central on his Facebook page as well as the Bowtech Facebook page. And he's just talking about scouting and everything like that for the upcoming hunts out west.
You would definitely pay attention to those live feeds. You will learn a lot of information. You can have same thing like this. You can ask your questions live, and we'll answer them.
Awesome. All right, Nate. Well, thank you very much, man. We
Perfect.
appreciate you taking your time and calling in here. And good luck fishing.
All right, thank
Absolutely.
you.
We're going to get back to it right now.
All right, man.
All right.
Enjoy, Nate. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, man.